Wem gehört diese Stimme?
If what you're saying is in fact true, that this is your standard, and that you in fact know what you're doing, so you can detect certain bugs.
Ja, diese Person klingt wie Elon Musk, sie lacht wie Elon Musk und sie argumentiert wie Elon Musk, ist aber laut eigener Aussage nicht Elon Musk, sondern ein Herr namens Adrian Dittmann auf Twitter. Und dieser Adrian Dittmann, ob es nun Elon Musk ist oder nicht, veranstaltet regelmäßig sogenannte Spaces, also Audio-Meetings auf X, ehemals Twitter. Und diese Zusammenkunft, die ich hier hochgeladen habe zwischen der Person, die vielleicht Elon Musk ist oder auch nicht, und Dan O'Dowd und verschiedenen Tesla-Aktionären war für mich so interessant, auch so unterhaltsam, dass ich sie hier mal in voller Länge hochgeladen habe. Dan O'Dowd ist, man kann sagen, der Erzfeind von Tesla, eine Person, die stellt sich raus in diesem Space, dass er früher mal für Tesla gearbeitet hat, dann gefeuert wurde und jetzt Millionen von privatem Kapital dafür einsetzt, Werbekampagnen gegen Tesla zu fahren. Und hört sich einfach an, ich habe es mit KI untertitelt, das heißt deutsche Untertitel, KI übersetzt, ist nicht perfekt, gibt viele Fehler in dieser Übersetzung, aber für diejenigen unter euch, die nicht allzu gut Englisch sprechen, wird es doch eine ganz gute Hilfe sein. Viel Spaß.
Welcome to the stage, Dan O'Dowd. How are we doing today?
Good. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Good. Beautiful. Audio quality is next level. Yeah. So I think first we should start with the basic rules of engagement. We would like this to be a debate. So if people would have any thoughts, anything they'd like to say, we're first going to go with hands, but given that the speaker panel seems to be relatively dynamic, we're going to go with, I think, no hands mode. Yaman will be the moderator and will interfere if things get out of hand. No hands mode means that you ought to wait at least 2 seconds after any one particular party has finished their point, such that you can interject without overriding them in whatever they are trying to say. We also want to be respectful with one another's time, trying not to dunk on anyone too heavily if that does in fact happen, because this may turn out to be a bit heated at times. So yeah, but that's basically it. Just be respectful, try not to interfere with one another, and we should be all good. That's essentially it.
Fine.
All right, and what got you interested in Tesla, following Tesla? By the way, Dan, we're getting quite a bit of a background noise from, I think, your side or Adrian's side.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Could be me. Hang on, let me...
Swipe down from the top right and turn on voice isolation mode.
Dan, what got you interested in following Tesla? I hear that you were a big fan of Tesla a few years ago, and then something flipped. What flipped for you?
Well, I bought a Roadster. I bought 2 Roadsters.
Didn't you buy like 5 more recently?
3 more. So I did not. I saw the announcements and whatever about Tesla and about the Roadster and everything, and electric car and acceleration and the really cool car and all those things. And I would say I was somewhat skeptical, having seen a lot of electric car failures, but not that I can't figure things out. I said, well, there's only one way to find out. I got to go down to the dealership. I drove down to LA and went to the Santa Monica dealership at the time. It was a little storefront, the 3 cars there or something. Did my test drive, ordered a car, got it delivered. I said, I've got to try it. I mean, does it really work? Is it really practical? So I got the car. I drove it. I loved it. I bought another one.
So what changed a few years ago that you became very critical of Tesla and specifically FSD?
Because I saw the basically the stuff that came out, the beta, your early beta sighters like Holmars and friends were going out there, and it was running red lights and stop signs and doing crazy stuff. And I looked into it and saw that's just that was terrible. I mean, what it was doing was terrible. Of course, it was being touted as awesome, but I have a different point of view about reliability and safety.
Okay.
It's not that it
Now,
should work
do you?
sometimes, but it needs to work all the time.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's the end goal. But do you agree that it's necessary to these techs to reach that end goal? And are you encouraged by the progress the FSD team has shown?
I would miss the first part about it's necessary. I mean, self-driving cars aren't necessary. We've lived without them. I mean, they'd be great if they were safe and reliable, but so I don't believe it's necessary. I believe an option is not to have self-driving cars. If we can't make them very safe, we shouldn't have them. We should just go back to driving with humans, which has
Okay.
its flaws. But if you can't make it better, there's no point in doing it.
Okay.
But on the progress, no. That somebody posted up the recent graph of time between interventions going all the way back to version 8. It's maybe twice the number of miles between disengagements in 2+ years. But to be a self-driving car, as in you don't have to drive, you don't have to watch, you can sleep in the back, you need to be 1,000 times better than we are today, at least, maybe more than
Okay.
that.
Okay. Thank you.
And
Hey,
we're not getting there.
Alexandra.
Thank you, Yaman. Dan, did Greenhill ever work with Tesla?
We have worked with Tesla. Yeah,
When was that?
we might still. I don't know.
No, I think you don't anymore. But how about you give me the year approximately when you did?
Oh, somewhere 2014, 15. I don't know.
Exactly. So, do you remember why it ended and how it ended?
Well, I do. It's kind of a funny story. At the time, I believe I might get the year wrong, but I think it was 2015. The team was developing Autopilot at the time, and the schedule, official schedule for the delivery, internal schedule that Elon had dictated was it had to be full self-driving. Well, they didn't use that term, autopilot, but full autonomy by the end of 2015. And they were working their asses off trying to figure out how to do that. They were projecting things on the wall. That's a little unfair. They also did have it in the car. I was in the car. I drove in the car a few times. But somewhere early in that year, which I think is 2015, Elon came in and said, "I'm moving the deadline up. You have to have it by July 1st." And they were like, "What?" They were killing themselves trying to figure out how they might do it by the end of the year, which of course they couldn't. I mean, it was hopeless. But he brought the deadline into July 1. And well, you might imagine they didn't actually get it on July 1. He called the team in on July 1 and screamed at them and told them how they totally let him down and hadn't met the deadlines and fired the whole lot of them in a giant screaming match. And that was the end of it.
That was the end of your contract with Tesla?
Right. We were working with the team that was building what is Hardware 1, I think.
Exactly. So I think everybody should know that you did that, and I think there was actually more to it than just the testing. I think that is when a first person was killed in a Tesla that may or may have not been under autopilot. Do you recall that?
I wasn't aware of that at the time, anytime in that period. I mean, yes, there was one guy.
You're aware now, right? You're aware now that was that. And so
Somebody died in 2016. What? Somebody died. I mean, yes, there was an early crash. I forgot. Joshua Brown, right?
Exactly.
2016.
And so just I think I would everybody like to understand that was built on the bus, whatever I mean, I know you tried to explain to me exactly what Greenhill does, but on the bus that linked those different software systems, that was a Greenhill bus, correct?
No, the question doesn't mean anything. I mean, bus, we're not a bus, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
Well,
wait, Dan.
I don't know if we were in there or not. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Omar.
don't know what was in. We left, and whenever that was, middle of 2015, everybody was fired. I mean, he fired the team and sent them off to do use a different processor.
Okay. Omar jumping.
Yeah, I thought you said that you had figured out how to build software that never fails and couldn't be hacked. So why did the system fail in that case?
No system failed. Elon Musk brought the in ridiculous and preposterous deadline of the end of the year back into July 1. Nobody just said it was done. It was a diktat. That's what it is.
But
Nobody
hold on
failed. There
here.
wasn't any
Let's
bugs.
dig into this
He
a little bit.
canceled the project, slammed and fired Jamie Carlson. That's the Jamie Carlson incident, who went over to Apple, I think, or wherever it went.
Okay, so
Oh,
now you're
and they switched. Oh, they switched. That's right. They switched to Linux when Robert Rose came in. He was the guy at SpaceX who ran the SpaceX software team. Elon brought him in to replace Jamie Carlson, and to move the program forward using Linux. So they
So that
switched to
must have
Linux
made
at
you
that
really
point.
upset. I know how you've hated Linux and campaigned against Linux over the years. How did you feel when they switched to Linux?
Well, we were already out of the program by that time. I talked to Robert Rose at some length. I pointed out to him. He said, "I'm the guy who got." I said, "You shouldn't use Linux in your car. That's crazy." And he says, "I'm the guy who got to the International Space Station with Linux." I said, "Like, doesn't it like have to run 10 minutes to get there?" And by the way, rockets are a 2-9 system. They fail about 1 in 100 times. Your average rocket blows up. Whereas your average car has to operate out to about 7 nines before it's even competitive in terms of its success, the amount of failure rate. That just because you can make it go in a rocket, they're like the least reliable products that are built that
Is
fail and
this the
blow up.
hang on.
Yeah, so I mean, I think
Is
your
this the acceptable rate of failure for rockets, or is this the actual failure for the rockets as it currently exists? Because SpaceX doesn't have every ninth rocket blow up.
No, 100,
Also,
one out
just
of 100.
can we do a
Oh,
quick
1 out of
fact
100?
check?
Oh, yeah.
Can we do a
All
quick
right.
Let's
fact
do a
check?
fact check.
I think
Yeah, Meta.
SpaceX is ahead of that at this point, but that's about the
Yeah.
average for other systems.
Okay, Meta.
Quick fact check, Dan. You said that you need 7 nines to be competitive with humans. Curious where you're getting your statistics from,
That
because
was only a rough number. I don't
okay,
know the exact number.
I would think as somebody who's worked in this space, you should know, or it's useful for us to know on the board that
I don't.
5 nines puts you at about one every 165,000, which is roughly how often an accident occurs by human drivers.
No, you're that what you just said is nonsense. Let me get into it. What is 5 nines, I believe, is 5 minutes a year is the failure is what
That's
that
for
means. That's what's
That's for
legal.
servers, right? So people aren't driving 124/7, right?
Yeah,
So
I know.
you should normalize by miles. We can normalize by whatever you prefer, but if we normalize by miles, the accident rate is once every 165,000 miles. Would you agree with that? And
I don't know.
if that is, if you, we can look that up. If you don't agree with that number, that is
I
also,
don't know. I mean, I'm not telling you you're wrong. You might be right. I just don't know.
I got that number from the Waymo safety report, not Tesla, just because you might find that contentious. We can find it from other sources if you'd like. But if we say 7 nines, that's the equivalent of one every 16 million miles, right? So we're moving the bar quite a bit.
Like I said, that was just a rough number. I know it's a lot more than 5 nines. But it
Well,
depends on what the equipment is and what and all the details. But also miles is not the point. I mean,
how would
it's
you
not
like to
miles.
normalize it so we can speak in math here?
Well, I don't deal in nines.
But then I don't think you should quote it, right? We should ground our discussion in facts if we can.
It's fine. Like I said, it was just I don't deal in nines. I mean, really, we don't do nines here. We do zeros.
Okay.
100%. No nines.
Okay.
99.9, 99.9999. I don't. We don't deal in nines.
Are you
Those are
making the
for
claim
people
that
that build systems that fail.
Are you making the claim that your software has never, ever, ever failed? And if that is the claim, if somebody could find that your software had failed, what would be the remediation you would provide?
No, I didn't say that. I know how to do it and I've done it. It doesn't mean every piece of software I've ever written is that way because some people don't care. It costs extra. If you want something done in a standard fashion, I can do it in a standard fashion at a competitive price. But if you want to pay for it, I can make something that doesn't fail. Yes, that never fails. They've never failed 20, 30, 40 years. Not one failure, not one bug report. I shipped a product to a major customer an important customer, and there's never been a bug report, not even one,
Okay.
in
Brian,
5 years.
Brian, then Omar.
Yes. So I guess my question to you is at what level would you say full self-driving would be safe? I mean, to me, it would be slightly better than human ability, or maybe the same as human ability.
So
And
that's actually wrong. Well, I mean, that I can show you why that's wrong. If you,
okay, why do you
I
think so?
believe even. So even is we kill one person that wouldn't have died to save one person who would have died. That is, you're trading. You're basically saying that we kill one more person, but one person was saved. That's what even means if you see the page. So is that correct? And you'd say, well, yeah, why not? Okay, I have my firefighter example. Firefighter, brave guy, house is burning down, runs into the house, saves the children, brings them out, saves 2 children. The next day, he goes and kills 2 random people on the street. Do we give him a credit for the 2 he saved and not put him in jail that he just killed 2 random people? Nope. We don't do one for ones. It can't be one for one. It has to be much better. And especially given it's a robot and it's a corporation and everything, minimum 10 is in my mind. 2x, nope. That
But
might
what
be
what was
logical.
so,
That
so
might be
I
logical, but you're living in a world, the people you kill will sue you, and the ones who you avoided killing won't even know they were avoided being killed, so they won't
Dan,
be come to your
let
rescue.
me ask you something. Why doesn't 2x work in your mind, but 10x works? Why not 2x?
Well, because at 10x, I believe you can start making art. You'll make society-wide arguments, and you'll say, "Yep, some people will die, but many more will be saved." And at some
But
point,
that's
you make
also
the hard
true with
decision.
2x.
I'm just
That's
telling
also
you,
true.
my opinion is that 2x will not fly politically. 10x will, 2x won't. I could be
Okay.
wrong,
But
but
you're
that's my
saying
opinion.
that if the decision was up to you and the software was 2x safer, you would approve it, right?
No. If it was my company, I wouldn't, because I'd get sued. All those people in the half that, the
But
half the
what
people
about
would
the
sue
people
me.
that you could have saved?
I know they can't, but they aren't going to not sue me because they don't even know they didn't die. I mean, they didn't die because we saved them, but they won't know that we saved them, so they won't come to our rescue. Only the plaintiff's lawyers will come after us,
No,
and only by
listen.
getting.
I agree with you. I agree with what you just said, and that's the reality that Tesla and Elon faces as well. I guess it's just a matter of what do we prioritize here? Are we prioritizing not getting sued or saving lives?
Also,
You
just
won't save any lives if you get sued into the ground.
if we're talking about lawsuits, Dan, I'm sure, we could talk to lawyers and stuff, but there's a term in legal bodies called mens rea. You must be able to show intent. In your firefighter example, the person intentfully went and killed people. In the case of like medical drugs production, we don't sue companies because while they're trying to save many lives, there may be some side effects. There are many drugs on the market that save lives and sometimes have side effects, including death. There are processes for this. I don't think we should go down this path unless we're going to ground it back to legal bodies of work.
Well, I mean, you can bring up drugs, but I think they require effectiveness and it has to be better. It can't just be even. Then I could sell my water as a drug because it doesn't kill any more people. I mean, it's um, so
Omar?
you. I don't think that
I
there's an.
don't
I
I
don't
think
think
this
it's an even
is
play.
I think this is a total mischaracterization to paint self-driving as saving one person and killing one person. The data we have shows something that's starkly different. It shows that way more crashes are prevented than caused. It's not even close. Waymo and Swiss Reinsurance did a study and found that 80% of injury causing crashes in their driverless service were prevented. So I think it's very telling. And frankly, this is how most of the business world thinks. Yeah, I could save thousands of lives, but what if I get sued and then I don't have a company anymore? Right? This is the kind of thinking that we see in the industry. But the data's overwhelming. And I think just really like digging into the substance of the issue here, you said that you became against full self-driving because you saw
Well, wait.
videos of it
Okay, you
doing.
just dropped a whole big thing about percentages and Waymos and whatever, and before giving me a chance to respond to that, you just changed to a completely new subject. So we could remember that, and if you
Okay, go
want,
ahead.
but I
What do you
didn't
have to
respond
say?
to what you just said. That Waymo did a study that showed that they avoided 80% of the argument. I mean, I'm not familiar with that study, but okay, I'll take your word for it. So what does that prove? Waymo is vastly superior to Tesla in terms of reliability. You can't use something about Waymo to defend Tesla's stuff. You yourself drove through San Francisco and ran two stop signs recently. That thing's crazy. Waymo, we've tested Waymo. You've tested Waymo. You said it's great. We tested it, never one failure, not one. Now, I'm not saying that that means Waymo is great and that it's even safe enough. I don't know. 5 tests isn't enough. You need to do like 1,000 in a row successfully, because that's what I do. I drive to work every day and I drive back every day, and I haven't had an accident since 2011. So I've driven, my commute. How much is that? 250 times 10, 2,000 times in a row without needing an intervention by somebody else to grab the wheel and stop me from doing something stupid. When you can do 2,500 Teslas back and forth to your work a day, I'd be saying, yeah, this thing's in the vicinity,
Okay.
worthwhile considering
The
that thing
data
should
the
go
data is
would go along.
overwhelming for driverless and supervised systems. AI in cars prevents crashes every day. Things like
Okay.
automatic emergency braking with cross traffic alert, FSD, people have passed out. Just look at the fatality statistics or the injury statistics or the crash statistics for any car in the US and compare it to supervised ADAS. I mean, you started this by saying you saw these videos of FSD doing crazy things, but this is a supervised ADAS system we're talking about here. It's the driver's responsibility to push the brake if they need to, or do whatever they need to do to take control of the system. And your company, Green Hill Software, they're out at CES every year talking about their involvement with ADAS systems and other sort of automotive peripherals. So, I mean, how do you feel about ADAS? This is something that your company, Green Hill Software, is involved in. Are you spending millions of dollars on this smear campaign against FSD because it impacts your company's business? If you're concerned about issues that FSD is having, are you also concerned about issues with ADAS systems that are built on top of your platforms? And can you certify that they're error free?
I think you're up to 5 questions. I'm trying to write them down as fast as you say them, but let's see if I can remember. Automatic emergency braking. Everybody's got that. That's nothing to do with FSD. Um, it it's a
Well,
completely independent
cross
unit.
traffic automatic emergency braking, for example, is not something that most cars have. That's enabled by the work they've done in their vision perception system.
But fine, I don't count that as FSD. That this is all basic ADAS stuff. Um, and I mean, you can count it if you want, but in my mind, so what? It's like everybody's got that kind of stuff.
But you're not opposed to
Um,
ADAS.
well, that was another of your questions, but you also snuck in the thing about the data is unequivocal. I think that's what Elon called it. Elon said the data is unequivocal that um, that that supervised full self driving is 4 times safer than a human driving alone. That is false. That is completely false. It is outrageously false. Everybody who gets in the car with me, I ask them that question: is this thing 4 times safer than human? They say no, it's not. In fact, they say it's way worse than your average beginning driver,
Dan,
16-year-old driver.
can you help me understand why Elon's statement is false? Because
Because
he's not talking about the software alone. He's talking when it's combined with human.
I understand that, and I understand the distinction. It is a pretty pathetic distinction, given that supervised FSD is bullshit and nobody wants it. But fine, that we can talk about this useless product. But is it safer? No.
Would you
We
say?
did a test.
Would you
We did
say?
our own
Oh,
tests. That
would,
that we
Meta,
did a
Meta.
test. We gave it a driver's test. We gave it a drive with a driver. We said, let's try a driver's test.
Okay.
And and it failed. The driver's
let's get to meta. Let's get to meta.
Would you say the same thing? Because I think you're changing the template of the argument here.
Well,
What Omar was,
Omar brought up 5 subjects.
I
I've
understand.
discussed 2 of them
We'll go
so
with
far.
one.
Are we going to 6? I mean, I'm
Let's
losing track now.
just do one at a time, right? I agree with you. It's hard to talk about 5 things at the same time. If we talk about automatic emergency braking, you agree it's safer. People are safer for it. But if you remove the human and AEB and you only look at AEB on its own, it's obviously a terrible system, just like better braking would be, or other things along those lines. So it's a strange comparison to say, let's look at humans plus AEB and AEB is good, but let's not look at humans plus FSD and FSD is good.
So I think you just said something. You said AEB is what, obviously bad? Is that what you said?
No,
Without
I'm saying if
FSD?
the argument is human plus system results in safer behavior, then what that system is, the logical template stays the same, whether that's AEB or FSD. So you're logically inconsistent in saying AEB
I'm
is
not.
good, but FSD is bad.
No. Well, that makes no sense. You say I say AEB. I mean, if AEB works, right? I mean, we just saw, Miss Julianne's tests of Mercedes automatic emergency braking. It didn't do very well. So automatic emergency braking that doesn't work isn't very useful. Though this morning I was driving on my Model 3 and without asking it, because the FSD's on there, but I have it turned off for absolute sure. And a car did in front of me stop. I mean, it came to a stop because it was going to make a left turn. And I wasn't expecting it. And it went beep at me. I said, what the hell is that? I realized. I mean, I hit the brakes to stop the car. But it did beep at me, but it didn't try to stop the car. Interesting. I didn't know that. So automatic emergency brakes that work are a good thing, and that's automatic, right? That's not person, that's not human. It's supposed to do it itself. They see a disaster coming.
Okay.
So
We have
okay.
we have a few hands. So let's run through that real quick. Brian, go ahead.
But I
I know that, but you're taking.
points.
I understand, but you're mixing anecdotal evidence and it has nothing to do with data. And now, if you're taking that much time, then we can't get to all of them.
Well, okay, fine. I'll just drop those issues. But on all those issues, I reserve I'm right and you're wrong, and we can deliberate them later if you want. Go ahead. New subject.
Dan, I just find it like hard to buy your argument that using FSD, and I'm talking about the latest version, which is I think is doing a pretty darn good job. Using FSD while paying attention to the road is actually less safe than not using FSD. It's almost like you have 2 drivers, but you're able to override the person in the passenger seat driving. Like, why wouldn't an extra set of, well, actually, what is it? 4 extra sets of eyes around the car be to your advantage when you can instantly override it?
Several reasons. The first one is that it's actually driving, not you. Even when you're with a driver, it's in control of the steering and the brakes and the accelerator. You are just sitting there with your foot over the brake, with your knees, your shin starting to hurt because you have to hold your foot off the pedal but keep it next to it so that when it does something stupid, you will be able to hit the brake. Friday, they took me out for a drive. I was my first version 12 drive. We went out, we drove around here, and within 1 hour, we tried to go drive right into the side of another car, turn left in front of the car. That's the problem. It is driving, not you. So you're trying to correct its errors. You're not adding to additive. You're trying to take a terrible driver and and stop it when it does something really stupid. So the driver is driving along with a supervisor and the driving, and so it is not safer, and it makes sense that it's not safer because it's so terrible, but also that it doesn't go straight. It decides, as it did for us on Friday, to turn the wheel to the left. You're a 2-lane road, perfectly good yellow line down the middle. It decided to turn left when there was a car coming.
Yeah, but your hands are on the wheel. Your hands are on the wheel, and that left-hand turn is instantly stopped if you're paying attention like you're supposed to be.
Wait. No, wait. No, that's a matter of fractions of a second. You don't know it's going to do it. Okay,
Well,
well,
if
first
if
let
you're
me
paying
wait.
it,
Oh,
if you're paying attention though, and you're actually holding the wheel ready to make a movement, like you should be according to what their terms and service say,
and
then
nobody does.
it's instant. Well,
Well,
I
no.
mean, yeah. Well, blame the person though, not the software.
Well, no, because first of all, again, you just didn't finish the last subject. We'll do on the new one. Um, no, nobody keeps their hands on the wheel. Have you seen? I mean, Omar never has his hands on the wheel. We never have our hands on the wheel. Jillian never has her hands on the wheel. What? Chuck Cook never puts his hands on the wheel. What? Nobody puts their hands on the wheel. That's not, it's designed to be full self-driving. You don't have your hands on the wheel. I've tried to drive with the hands on the wheel. You can't. If you have your hands on the wheel and you're there and you move it, you disengage right there. And what
No, that's
happens? You're
not
driving
true,
along, you
Dan.
come to a curve, and you decide, I'm going to take the inside of the curve, and it decides it wants the outside. Both are okay decisions. You choose inside and move the steering wheel to the inside, and it says, oh, whoops, and it just gives up and it turns off. You can't drive it with your hands on the wheel. It's not designed to be driven. The manual says you must, but nobody does. I dare you to show me a video,
Okay.
any video of FSD on YouTube in
All
which
right.
somebody had their hands on the wheel. They don't.
Okay. Omar, then Meta, then Wes.
Well, first off, obviously, you are driving the car. You get into the car as a human driver. You choose to turn it on when you want it. You turn it off when you don't want it. You rest your hands on the wheel. If you're making a video, that might be one thing. You want to show people that it's driving. But normally, I always just rest my hand on the wheel. You're fully in control. This is a supervised ADAS system, just like your company sells. And I want to point out the irony that Dan
I
O'Dowd
wasn't
was
allowed to answer that
Dan,
question because
Dan,
you
hold on.
stopped my
Hold on.
subject. You've brought it up again. You haven't finished the last subject
Dan,
and you
hold on.
started a new
I'm trying
subject.
to make a
Uh,
point here.
One after another, one after another. Come on, everyone, let's calm down.
So, I just want to point out the irony that Dan was driving in a Tesla Model 3 and he had the forward collision warning go off to help him prevent a crash. FSD and the work they're doing helped stop him from getting in a crash. And he doesn't realize that this multi-million dollar ad campaign he's spending against FSD is hurting people. I mean, there are crashes that are prevented every day from things like forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking. That's all built on the perception system behind FSD. This is
But
something that unequivocally, I mean, why would somebody use it if they felt that it was going to put them in danger? This is installed on every Tesla for free. It's stopping crashes even in your own car. And yet you're spending millions of dollars essentially to try and kill people. It doesn't make
okay.
any sense.
well, so you changed the subject 3 times again. So go
Well,
ahead.
that's a
Then
good
you can do
point.
that.
So what's your response before we go to Meta?
Well, the response, I mean, how many things do I have to respond to? It's forward. I
Just
didn't turn,
that,
I had
just that.
FSD turned off. I guarantee you it was off. It's a nightmare to try to drive that stupid thing with FSD on, as it is for everybody while you're sitting there waiting for it to, not waiting, but hoping. No, you know it's going to try to turn you left into an oncoming car or into a car on the side of the road or jump into the next lane in front of somebody in your blind spot. It does that like many times a day. You have to be watching every second to make sure it doesn't. And when you do,
Okay.
and I've tried driving it, it's terrible. But
Okay.
that was not, I got that warning. I never turned anything on. You said it's free. That's good. I'm all for that. That's not FSD. I know that because I didn't click the button to turn on FSD. That's
Okay.
not FSD. I'm against FSD, which is driving your car. You said it isn't driving, you're driving. That is false in every way. You do not have your hand on the wheel. You do not have your hand on the brake, your foot on the brake. You do not have your foot on the accelerator, and the car is driving. That is driving itself, not you. The human is supervising the software driving the car. That's what's going on. And you keep saying it's you. And Tesla says it's you for legal reasons so they don't get sued. But the product itself jerks the wheel with no warning
Well,
when you
but
have
then,
a fraction of a second to
right.
save your life,
Okay.
and I don't want that in my car, and neither do
Okay.
all the people who bought it. They're not
Then
using it. They're
the
not
buck
turning it on.
stops with the person sitting in the driver's seat. So this is
No, it
supervised
doesn't.
FSD. Yes, it does. This is
No, it
supervised
doesn't.
FSD. People are encouraged. They have to keep their hands on the wheel, eyes on the road. And if the software does a mistake, humans must take over and prevent that. These are
I'm only
facts.
trying to make sure that that's
You're
not
disputing
true.
facts here, man.
What?
You're disputing the facts here. This is a
No, I'm
fact.
not. I'm not. I am
Meta.
working very hard to make it be Tesla's fault for
Okay.
shipping a product that is not manageable by ordinary human beings.
Okay.
I won't
Meta.
drive with it.
I
I
think we're all
won't
Meta
drive
proving a
with it.
jumping.
point. Dan, your time is very valuable, and we'd like to, engage in a productive manner. So I'd like to
People
bring it a
keep
little bit back
interrupting.
to numbers, if that's okay, and to a simile in another similar industry. Your, my understanding is your software, it it it's a big role in how autopilot works in planes. There were recent crashes, whether your software was on it or not. We can discuss that as a separate system, but those planes, when they have crashes, we don't just remove autopilot from planes, right? Your software has been there. I don't know if those customers asked you to write code that was only 5 nines or 7 nines, but not 100%, because you've got this patented way of doing 100% software that never has any faults. But two questions here. One, why is it that for planes, you're okay with autopilot sticking around and you don't spend millions of dollars on a campaign to remove autopilot from planes, which are killing people? There was the accident where, the yaw was going the opposite direction. So planes were actually crashing into the ground very, when the warning system would go off. I'm sure you know many other examples. And then the second question is,
Two questions.
yeah. And
Okay.
the second question is, when we're talking about you have this patented method or the secret sauce of how to build software with zero bugs, the Pickering power plant, people did crazy validation to make sure these nuclear power plants wouldn't have any issues and wouldn't melt down. There's X-ray systems that accidentally shot gamma rays at people. There's triple engine planes that had issues. All these amazing, amazing situations in history of engineering that led to catastrophic issues that engineering organizations teach each other to learn from, with an acknowledgement that there's always issues. If you really have a system that could save so many lives, why are you so selfish to keep it to yourself?
All right. First one, 737 Max. They grounded the whole airplane and the whole fleet for God knows how long. They took them all out of the skies when they realized that they were killing people. Yes. That's what happens in airplanes. When you do something stupid and you build something that doesn't work, they take your product off the market. Not just you can't sell it. They take it away from everybody who's using them and they put them on the ground and they don't let them take off until they prove they fixed the stupid thing. That's all I want here. I'm not saying FSD should come off the road forever. Take it back to the lab and fix all the bugs that I have reported, that every other driver, Cole Mars, Chuck Cook, just over and over and over, we report bugs and what do they work on? Parking. And then they try to go into, and then Chuck Cook shows us, trying to auto park and try to go into oncoming traffic, for God's sakes. Auto park shouldn't be worked on. 1 hour should not go into auto park until they fix the terrible, terrible problems that this software has. In the aircraft industry, they would laugh their asses off at any one of these failures. Everyone would be grounded
Okay,
at those
Meta.
kinds of failures. Number two, I had two questions. Nuclear
Okay.
power plants. Why don't I do it? I do it. I'm here to help Tesla if they want. I mean, I don't seem to want to,
I
but
did
I
I
get
didn't
some
ask
good
you why you don't.
responses from Ford and Toyota
You're
and
mischaracterizing the
Boeing
question that
and
was asked.
Lockheed and all those companies. They love my products and I sell them lots of stuff. I'm not keeping it away from anybody. I'm open to sell it to anybody who wants to buy it.
My
Meta.
question wasn't about why aren't you selling it. I'm saying if you have a life-saving, human advancing technology to write completely bug-free software, why would you keep that to yourself versus actually advance humanity forward, right? So that's the actual question. And if that claim isn't true, then why would you use that as a way of suggesting that it is true? Because quite frankly, you've been in the software space, I've been in the software space. I feel like what you're doing is you're saying every engineer, Demis Hassibis, Ilya Suskova, every single engineer who's well-meaning is an idiot, and you're the only person who knows how to make software.
Well, that's a stupid statement. You make software, and so does those other guys. So that's a dumb statement. So let's try another one. Like I don't understand. You want me to give it away? I invented a cure for cancer, and you want me to give it away?
Yeah, would
I'm
you rather
here. I'll
watch people
I'll
die?
cure everybody's cancer.
Would you rather watch people
I mean, if
die?
you,
So you would let people
No.
die because they wouldn't pay for your cancer cure.
Yeah, I think that's
How
the
wow.
much money do
deal.
you need, Dan?
I don't need any
All
amount of
right,
money. I
let's
got
go
all the money
to
I need.
we're going to Wes, and then Omar. Sorry,
Oh, wait, we
Wes,
didn't finish the
Wiggle,
last
then Omar.
subject. We didn't
Well, it
finish the
kind of
last
it's
subject.
Hey, I'm
we're gonna
new
move
to
on.
this
Wes,
discussion, but I'm interested to know, Dan, if you maybe like two questions. If we could bring this back to numbers and like talk about something that's been implemented for many years, AEB. Would you consider yourself an expert on AEB?
Nope.
Okay, so we can't talk about AEB. What would you consider yourself an expert on?
Lots of things. I mean, I'm certainly an
In
expert
this
on
discussion.
operating system design.
So
Well,
just
operating
operating,
system design. No,
is that correct?
I'm very knowledgeable at compilers. I've written one of the best compilers in the world.
Right.
Debugging, I'm really a top flight guy in debugging. I know a lot more about
So
debugging than almost everybody.
low level stuff, right?
You
Is that a
could
correct
say
statement?
it's low level if you want, but
Okay. Are you familiar with false positives and false negatives with AEB testing?
no. I mean, I guess I can guess what
Okay.
it means, but I don't know
Okay.
anything about it.
Well, from my perspective, since I've implemented those systems, all the way up from the real-time operating system and hardware and vehicle integration, I really can't have an engineering discussion with you then. I would need an expert. So anyway, those are my questions. Thank you.
I hope you didn't work
okay.
on the Mercedes AEB. That didn't turn out so well.
Wes, do you want to talk? Do you want to talk about who you worked for?
Yeah, so I have a long history with AI, vehicle engineering, and autonomous systems. So with several different companies. But if you're not an expert, like how are we going to have a founded engineering discussion? It's all going to be anecdotes and hearsay.
I don't do
Like that's no
anecdotes.
fun.
I don't do anecdotes. I build reproducible test cases that demonstrate failures in the FSD product. That it should be taken off the market, and all those problems should be fixed before putting
Okay,
it back.
let me ask you a
You do
question. I
realize,
know you're an
you do
expert
realize
on.
previously
You're an
you just
expert on
did exactly
integrity,
that.
RTOS, right?
I missed the last part. Two people were talking.
Sorry. You're an expert on integrity, RTOS, correct?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, how many times has that code been revised?
I don't know.
Just take a guess.
I don't know how to make a guess. You mean how many edits have been made to the source code in the last 25 years?
Yeah, just thousands, right? Tens of thousands, correct? Some number that's bigger than that,
Don't
right?
know. Well, I'm actually probably guess it's less than 10,000, but yeah, it's a lot.
Okay, great. And why were those edits made?
I don't know.
Features or issues?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are some of both.
Are you still there?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
said some of both.
Sorry, I didn't hear the answer. Features
He
or
says
issues?
some of both. He's guessing some of both.
Some features, some issues.
All right.
I don't know.
Wes is having a connection. I'm going to move him down and then bring him back up. In the meantime, Wiggle, go ahead.
Yeah, Dan, you said Tesla should take the FSD back to the lab and perfect it and bring it back once it's ready. But the whole point of it training using real world data is to drive supervised on the roads and giving it real data that is not simulated or synthesized. So how do you envision the future of autonomous driving if you block the advent of autonomous technologies, which by its nature have to happen through supervised trial and error?
Well, all that's wrong. It doesn't need to be supervised. Waymo didn't do it that way. Waymo didn't put something on the road until they had tested it thoroughly both in simulation and, as
This
I
is
do,
false.
by
This
writing
is false.
tests, by building tests.
This is wrong.
This is
They
false.
do
building
actually have
tests.
Let's do a
supervision.
quick fact check here, Dan. Even in their most recent safety report, they reported 20 accidents in the first the first million driverless miles without a driver behind the wheel. And the first one was severe. Nobody died, but somebody hit the car from behind. You can't have zero. You're making a lot of statements. You've stated you're not an engineer. I believe you've also stated you're not a
False. Wait,
lawyer.
no, 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 no,
So
no,
I
no,
would
no, no,
ask,
no,
I would
no,
ask as
no,
an
no, no.
engineer, I would
No, I
ask,
am an engineer. I have a degree in engineering, and it's what I've done for the last 40, 50 years.
but you can't speak about nines? What kind of engineer doesn't speak about safety in terms of probabilities?
The ones
Th-
who build things that don't fail.
yeah, I don't.
Okay.
I know you don't believe it.
No, Dan,
I understand that.
Dan, back to the original points. It is false that Waymo did not do supervised rides, right?
I didn't say that. I said they didn't do it
Okay.
until they had the thing working. They wouldn't take it out. No, they don't have it today. If there's a driver in a Waymo, they are an employee test driver who has passed a number of tests, and there's a whole bunch of restrictions on what they have to know. That's a professional test driver, not some drunk idiot that can get in the TRARB just because they can afford $99 a month to buy FSD.
Okay.
So you're saying that there
Supervisors
isn't
are
supervision?
not trained
To say that there
drivers.
is. Which of the two is it?
What? Of what?
You're saying that there isn't any supervision, and now at the same time you say that there is. And actually, as a matter of fact, there is. There are interventions for the Waymos that consistently fail because it's insufficient technology. We have remote interventions. Do you remember this incident where essentially all the Waymos, I think it was the Waymos, that couldn't move anywhere in San Francisco and blocked an entire road? That's kind of funny.
Right, it's kind of funny. They didn't kill 30 people, though. So just kind of putting things on a chain. They have no driver and they've killed nobody. And you've got a bunch of ordinary citizens driving a car, killing a whole bunch of people. Which is more safe? I mean, the one that doesn't need a driver at all, or the one that takes it down to only
Isn't this
30
exactly
people
why
if
we
they
need
have
autonomy, though?
What?
More safe
Isn't
is
this
a
exactly why we
question.
need autonomy?
More safe is a number
No,
question.
hold on. Meta, we have people raising their hand. Omar, down West.
Yeah, so let's just get back to the crux of the issue. You say that you want to pull self-driving off the road until they can fix these issues. And I mean, first of all, they're sending out new updates every week, improving the software. It basically doesn't make mistakes anymore. It does almost all of my drives with
It
zero
tried to run
interventions.
me off the road. Tried to crash into a guy yesterday for me. And when did it do it? Come
I thought
on,
you
give
said
me a
you didn't.
fucking
I thought
break.
you said you didn't turn on. So,
No,
again,
that was earlier.
okay,
This
well,
one was
hold
that
on
was
a
on
minute.
Friday. It tried to
Let's just
turn
let's
into
just think
traffic.
about this, right? Let's just
What?
think about this for a minute. So, the crux of the issue, should full self-driving be pushed off the road, which is what you have spent millions of dollars to campaign for. Now, is this something that's going to save lives, or will it actually lead to more death? I think this is the crux of the issue. Because I agree with you. If pulling full self-driving off the road would save somebody's life, then I agree that we should do it. But I
One
think the
person?
data is pretty clear that more people would actually die if you pulled them off the road. Now, we can look at statistics from NHTSA. In the most recent year, they said 1.35 fatalities per 100 million miles traveled on average. Those are the statistics we have. Now, FSD has driven 1.4 billion miles. If we just sort of multiply that out, it suggests that 19 people should have died traveling 1.4 billion miles. I think the data NHTSA has suggests that there was one fatality where somebody was using FSD beta. And that doesn't even necessarily mean the system was responsible. So you're essentially advocating for killing 19 people in my mind. You've spent millions of dollars for this. And when you look at the fact that FSD is now driving 1 billion miles every 60 days, this would essentially lead to an extra 5 to 7 fatalities every month, I think. So this is really the core of the issue and why I think what you're doing is so reprehensible. I mean, you're spending millions of dollars of your money that could go towards so many things, feeding kids, educating people, and you're spending millions of dollars to advocate for basically banning seatbelts, trying to kill people. It's just so absurd.
Dan, you want to respond to that?
Yeah. That's all false. The whole thing is baloney. NHTSA just said that Tesla wasn't counting uh, uh, 82% of the crashes when it said it was safer. It says we're safer. Yeah. If you leave out 82% of the crashes, then yeah, you're safer. Like, come on, it's total bullshit. This has been going on for years and years and years.
Okay.
It is
So
not
then
safer.
where are the 19 people
Wait a
that are
minute.
dead?
Nobody, he gets to talk for like 3 minutes and insult me the whole time, call me a killer and a murderer, and you cut me off after 30 seconds. Boy, this is really a great debate here, you know.
When,
Like,
when
Well,
did
you
we
said
call you a
80%
killer?
of
Dude,
the
when did we call you a murderer?
Dan, you obviously have the most talking time in here, and that's the way it should be. But
well, because it's me
we have
against
other
all of you
people.
guys.
Yeah. I mean, you.
Where's my
I'm
allies?
hearing you out. I'm getting to understand your position a little bit better, but we do have to kind of keep the conversation moving because we have other people who want to ask you questions.
But wait, he
Wes,
called me a murderer. He says I'm killing people, and I just sit here and put up with that. It's bullshit.
When did we do that?
Tesla
you
has
responded.
lied
When
on
did
the
we do that?
statistics for safety for the last 10 years. They've been claiming they're safer since at least 2015, where we've got a video of Elon saying it's safer right now in 2015. It didn't even know how to do a traffic light in 2015. He's saying these things out there. It's total bullshit. I know it was bullshit at the time. And all this safety, the quote saving lives and whatever, all of that is based on manufactured false data. Like the ranges were manipulated, and the suspensions weren't having problems, and the whole painted black video is a complete fake. We tried it. We tried running that thing. It can't do it today. What he claimed it could do in 2016.
Okay.
Everything.
Wes.
So, and he calls me a liar. He says I'm killing people. It's all false data. It's all bullshit. It is not safe.
I really like
I really
like the way Wes approaches this topic based on data, reasoning, and he tries to understand the other side as well. He does this in my spaces every day, and just great resource. Wes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry it broke up. I don't know the last thing that you heard, but we were walking down this path of like false positives and false negatives with AEB. AEB has been in production now for 2 decades, so I think it's worth talking about just to kind of ground the conversation in some math. And just so everybody knows, like a false positive is something that when the car brakes, the AEB system engages and there's nothing actually there to brake for. That's a false positive. And then a false negative is when it is something that it should brake for and it doesn't. And so this is all calculated by NHTSA, and the AEB systems that they have are tested so that they can understand if it passes some of these milestones. And so I'm wondering, Dan, is any of this relevant to you? Are you aware of any of this?
I guess I don't quite understand. Aware of what? AEB?
Are you? Yeah, did you hear what I just said? Like, do you understand how like NHTSA like tests these systems, how they're designed?
I don't know. Maybe they do. I've seen some people test AEB. I saw some Euro NCAP testing,
well,
but I don't remember NHTSA
yeah.
testing.
Yeah, so in Yaman space, when I have these discussions, I usually speak with engineers who are experts in their field so that like we can kind of dive into these details. But, you know, if you're not aware of these things, then I really can't like forward the conversation from an engineering perspective. From my side, just so you know, these systems, these AEB systems, are designed to not fail over a certain amount of time behind the wheel. And at some point they will fail. They'll have a false positive, they'll have a false negative. That is part of the game. Like that is part of the code. Like that's how it works. Mobileye designs these systems as well as many other companies, and I'm sure that you're aware of that. What I think is not being talked about is the failure rate. What is that failure rate and why does it exist at that level? And that's the conversation I wanted to have, but if you're not familiar with that, then I don't see how we can have a good discussion. So thanks for my time.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not. I don't have anything against automatic emergency braking. I put it in. Make it. If it works great, it should work great. I'm not against that. I'm against full self-driving, which takes control of your car and tries to kill you from time to time. And that's not a suitable consumer.
Do you know the terms? Do you? First of all, I just want to make sure you know the terms false positive and false negative.
Yes, I know what those are.
Okay.
Why do
So
I mean, he was talking about automatic emergency braking.
Yeah.
You're wasting your
Yeah,
time on
I'm
FSD
trying.
for him talking about automatic emergency braking,
No,
but that's fine.
no, it's not a waste of
Yes,
time.
it
From an
is. We're
engineering
not
standpoint, we have
talking
to
about this subject. You're talking about
Yeah,
wheelies. Come
I'm
on,
not going
man.
to insult you.
Talking about FSD.
I'm not going to do that. I'm an engineer, so I just want to talk about numbers.
Are you talking
So
again? You just said
FSD
we
at
have nothing to discuss because we don't have a common basis. Don't go
okay,
off.
yeah,
Get
I'm
somebody
done.
else a chance
Thanks,
to
Yaman.
talk.
No.
Cut
Let's
him off.
stay on board.
That's 3 times he's tried to talk, and all he's doing is implying.
Andre, go ahead.
Thanks, Eamon. Dan, thanks for answering all these questions. And I want to kind of, I have 2 points to address, but I'll address one, and then if I have time afterwards, by all means. I agree with you that there is software that can be written and proved to be written correctly, right? There's a lot of research, including Microsoft research, that's spent on proving software to be correct in its function, which is, there's methodology to do so. And there is software that powers the world that is always correct, right? Currently. However, there's an interesting nuance here, right? So we're no longer working with regular software. We're working with a neural net, which is an approximation function from input to output. So provability there is seemingly impossible unless you do it through testing. And so to improve it, you got to test, feed it back to itself, and keep getting it better and better, right? You can try and simulate it, but you'll never have the real world. And so this method of software is, we either have to do all the testing, or we have to ditch neural nets and go to human written code, which will have that engineering probability approach, right? So are you suggesting that we go the route of neural nets or not? And if we go the route of neural nets, how do we get from current state of the neural net and improve it to get to the end result, which is your factor of 10 improvement over self-driving, over human driving?
Dan. Dan, you have to unmute yourself for us to hear you.
Cannot hear me? Oh,
Yeah, we can't
I
hear you.
didn't touch it. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So in a proper engineering process, this product never would have gone to beta site. This is an alpha site product. It's got lots of bugs. I can go and find bugs in one day. You had hundreds of people. Early on, there were like 50 or whatever beta siters. They were all finding plenty of bugs, and they couldn't fix them. They couldn't fix them as fast as they could find them. There is no point in going to a beta site and producing hundreds, people pushing that button every single day, passing in bugs, and nobody could fix them. Still, nobody can fix them. I have a pile of bugs, and Chuck's Corner, at least last I heard, still couldn't do that right. Why? You don't need all these people out on the road, all these amateurs, civilians out on the road with broken software that isn't even finished, and beta testing. That's such a fraud. The whole thing is a fraud. You were wasting your time. They can't fix the easy bugs. I give reproducible test cases. They should fix my reproducible test cases. Maybe I'll come up with some more. When I can't come up with reproducible test cases that work in the lab, that don't require being in the public area, and you can fix all of mine and all of everybody else's, and you should have a team of hundreds of people who sit around all day trying to find ways to trip it up. And when all those people are defeated and you got software that works really great, then you can send it out on the road with some professional test drivers until you get hundreds and hundreds of test drivers who just never see a problem. Like day after day after day, there are no problems. And you say, now it's time to ship it out to civilians, at least some. That's how software is supposed to be shipped in safety critical systems.
Okay.
It's not
Adrian.
being done.
Do you mind if I follow up?
So given... Oh. Okay, sure. Go for it.
I meant Adrian, not Andre. Andre, just stay on mute. Adrian, go ahead.
Okay, good. Yeah, so if what you're saying is in fact true, that this is your standard, and that you in fact know what you're doing, so you can detect certain bugs and perhaps even fix them, which I think is the exact crux of exactly what you're trying to do. This seems to be a two-sided thing here, where either you are trying to, say, work for Tesla, get the money, and provide, quote, solutions, or build your own system and get Tesla's FSD banned. Now, if you are to construct your own solution to this problem, would you do it? And have you already done that? Because I'm pretty sure there has been a case where your software has been in at least one vehicle and tested. Is this correct?
In what, Tesla? In one vehicle?
No, tested. Yes.
Test.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure your
software's in lots of
software's been in a
products.
vehicle that we tested, right? Remember
Yeah,
that?
sure.
There was a test done in Germany, I think.
Test done? I don't know. Oh, there's the Euro NCAP stuff. Yeah. Okay. I mean, we're in lots and lots of cars. I don't know how many and different
Yeah,
systems.
but what's your competitor product? You're saying that you can provide a product that is better. You're saying that you would have all these different types of standards. Why don't you build your own thing, ship it out there, and show us how much better it is, as opposed to wasting, say, tens of millions of dollars on advertisements trying to disprove another person's product without ever making one?
You mean me developing a full self-driving car system?
Yes. Yes. If you think you know better, then I dare you to do so.
Well, no. Like Google has literally spent 15 years and I don't know, 20, 30 billion dollars. Elon said he's spending 10 billion this year. I don't have that kind of money. I can't do that.
Then perhaps it is obvious that your systems in certain cars are becoming obsolete. Could this also be the reason why you are so heavily opposed to Tesla software?
No, there's no chance this software is ever going to be if it's ever going to be self-driving. There's no chance. It needs to be.
It is self-driving. It is self-driving.
Sorry.
I've been in a car. It is safe self-driving. I've been in a car where there are different modes, by the way, to FSD. There are different modes to FSD. Okay. You can select the chill mode. You can select assertive. Those are the two opposites from each other. There's also a medium mode, but those are the two opposites. One is actually more unstable than the other. So if you're going chill mode, it's actually slower. It almost behaves like a driver who is overly cautious and is exactly that. And an assertive mode seems to be more nervous. I wouldn't recommend using assertive mode. I would just recommend using chill mode. Now, usually if you're on chill mode, you get zero intervention drives. I myself have done several drives with the latest version of FSD on chill mode, and I've done zero intervention drives. I haven't experienced any problems whatsoever. It is, by all intents and purposes, full self-driving. Even on the highways, where you have, environments of high complexity, which is usually where errors tend to, errors tend to flare up, there were zero interventions needed. It actually did things that most humans wouldn't do. And what I mean with this is it did things that actually was beneficial to the road environment itself, right? Because you're supposed to behave on a road as if you are in an environment with other people, much like you would walk through a city. You're not trying to disturb anyone. You actually, most of the time, try to get out of everyone else's way. And this is exactly what FSD actually does, without intervention.
It doesn't require interventions. Everybody knows that. Just go look online.
That depends on where you are. That depends on where you are and what you're using. If you're using assertive mode, then the chance for interventions is higher.
Okay.
100%.
But there are interventions, and they're not very far apart. As a
on
human
which
driver,
mode and in which environments? This is a bit of a problem here. So let's break it. Let's be more specific here. Let's be more specific and say which environments. So there are different types of environments. There are environments with low complexity. Let's say the environment of lowest complexity would be something like a straight road in the desert. There's nothing there. There is essentially, you could run autopilot on there and nothing would happen. Right? This is an exceedingly low complexity environment. And then you could have something like San Francisco, the Tenderloin district, where you have crackheads randomly running on the road. Let's say that is high complexity. Okay, so you have to pick between those two, extremes. What is high and low? So now we've defined this. If you are going to put the car in a high complexity environment, such as what I just mentioned with downtown San Francisco, then you're going to have more interventions, obviously, because it's going to do things that are unpredictable. If you add to that, of course, using, say, assertive mode with FSD, then it's going to, again, increase the chance of interventions. But if you're going to go chill mode, it may not even move in those areas because they're random people just running onto the road. So you're essentially mixing two different extremes with one another, treating them as if they were to be used interchangeably, but that's not accurate at all, now is it? And also you're not defining whether or not you're using FSD on chill mode or assertive. You're just simply saying interventions. You're mixing the data. You can't mix the data. You have to be specific here. are you specifically saying data from one specific city? And if so, which region? Or are you saying data overall? Like,
Well,
what are we doing here?
We've tried all three
We're
modes.
mixing the
and
data sets.
We've tried all three modes, and they all produce lots of interventions. Yes, we
Lots
could
of
improve.
interventions, but which mode produces the most interventions?
I don't know. It's not a great deal of difference, but maybe some difference. I'm not sure we have studied that exactly. But
Perhaps you
I
haven't
mean, we
tested it
could.
enough.
I think I heard that we could make this better by
How?
geofencing to places that it knows about and that are easy, and tell it never to go to places that are hard. Sure, that's the way.
Yeah.
Geofence it. So I mean, you can test FSD out and see it works great in certain areas on certain roads, and then you say, okay, that's a good one. And other places that you try it, it just can't handle it, and you ban it from those places. I mean, that's fine. That would make things better than it is today.
Interesting. All right, Meta.
Dan, are you familiar with unknown unknowns?
Yes.
Would you agree that no matter how many test cases you write for a complex enough problem, you can't actually get all the test cases, and so you run into a halting problem?
You mixed metaphors there. Halting problem has nothing to do with this.
A halting
With
problem is when you have an algorithm that you don't know that you can provably show it will stop. So if you have the algorithm for producing test cases, that algorithm itself may never stop. So I'm not mixing metaphors. I'm just trying
Yes,
to
you are.
describe it.
Doesn't make any sense. I mean, algorithms to develop test cases. I mean, you can write algorithms to write test cases, but you
That's
also have
okay.
people writing them.
Let's simplify it. Can you verifiably state how long it would take to write out all the possible test cases that you want to see done? And if all of those were done, it would satisfy you. Can you say how long that would take for you to develop that test suite?
Depending on how many people I had working on it.
Let's say you had 100 people working on it. How long would it take you?
I don't know, maybe a few years. I'm just guessing.
Let's say you had 1,000 people working on it. How much time would it take you?
I don't know. I mean, it would be less, but probably not linearly. But
Okay, so we can't discuss people time. You can't give me a timeline. If
I
it's a
don't need
couple
to
of
give you.
100 years, a lot of people die during that time. So under the area under the curve, right? As you're approaching better and better safety, that area under the curve where you're denying the use of the vehicle with FSD, those deaths are someone's responsibility. Engineering is about trade-offs. Engineering is not about 100%.
Well, I disagree with your premise. The more you keep FSD off the road, the less people die.
That's not what the data shows. If you
You
want to,
have no data to prove that. You have nothing.
if we're talking about fatalities, there are hard facts. If you want to
No, they're not.
discuss, if you want to
No, I disagree.
discuss if you want to discuss accidents where airbags don't go off, that's a different discussion. We can have that discussion. You could say there's property damage, but fatalities, unless you're saying Tesla is somehow burying the news about people dying at massive numbers, or NHTSA is burying that, or there's some greater conspiracy, I would ask you to produce those numbers. Otherwise, what you're saying, I'm not a lawyer, but it feels kind of libelous.
No, it's true. I don't have all the data because I'm not NHTSA. I'm not Tesla. I have no downloads from cars. I have no power to subpoena people or order people to produce reports.
We're
I can
referring to
only
deaths,
read
though.
reports.
I'm referring to deaths.
I don't know what the deaths are. I mean, nobody knows any of that stuff. Anything that comes from Tesla is not to be believed, and and everything else, I don't know. I mean, all we do is find out time and time again that Tesla made shit up. They make up data, they make up stuff, and then they conclude the ridiculous conclusions from that stuff.
So
I
is your
can't
claim that
really.
people are dying out there and no government agency is investigating?
I don't know.
Come on, Dan.
Or how are they even determining whether
Dan,
FSD was
how
on
do
or
you
whether
know?
autopilot was on, or how do they? I mean, recently actually I noticed this was a few months ago. A new death occurred like a year ago.
Right,
Like they said, we just discovered a new death.
do you know how many people die taking things like Tylenol? Should we ban
I don't know.
Tylenol? That's the
Somebody
problem
didn't
with
notice. Somebody
100%.
didn't file it. Then somebody did. We can't. All that
You know,
data is
I actually
suspect.
want to hear the answer to that question. I want to hear the answer to that question, Dan. People
What?
die taking Tylenol. Do you think we should ban Tylenol?
Why are you talking about Tylenol? I mean,
Well, I think that's a fair question because you're requiring software to be 100% accurate before it goes out to the wild.
No, I'm not.
Does that mean, do you hold every other? Okay, go ahead.
I never
You
said
literally
it was
said
100%.
that you would never have any software be shipped out there unless it is 100% safe. You literally said exactly
No, I
that. So
didn't.
tell us.
No, I
Yeah, it's
didn't.
exactly
I
you said
did
that.
not.
You said that if there are no reproducible bugs, if you can't do, if you had a bunch of experts trying to like say test FSD for instance, and if there are no more flare-ups, no more bugs of any kind, then you ought to release it, not before that. You said exactly that.
Right, but that's not
the
perfect.
templated-
No. Wait. No, there's still going to be lots of bugs in there. The engineers putting up
No
set
bugs is a
pieces.
complete is a different from
No,
is a huge difference from less bugs. Okay, no bugs, less bugs. Some bugs are
didn't
still
say
acceptable.
that.
So would you say that it is still technically acceptable that a few bugs can occur with FSD?
Sure, I expect there will be bugs.
Okay,
And
then we are in agreement.
Good.
Well,
So
we
do the
came to an
beta
We can use
agreement.
FSD.
We came to an agreement with Dan O'Dodd. Look at that. Oh my God.
I'm a reasonable
That is
person.
amazing.
I mean, I just know how these things work. It's the testing. You cannot find all the bugs with set piece tests like we do. You have to go out and run it in the real world. I absolutely agree with that, but only after you can pass all the set piece tests, because that will work out the most of the most horrible bugs.
Could I ask a
But
quick
there will
follow-up,
be
Iman?
more, and they'll be found by beta testers, and eventually, even then, there will be more bugs found eventually by the real customers, and that's
Okay.
inevitable. But we want
Okay.
that to be
All
a
right.
small number.
Beautiful. Okay,
Okay,
Meta,
great.
I want to go ahead with Meta.
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking about set piece tests. I've not actually heard that terminology before. I assume what you're referring to is reproducible in a lab test. I'm
Right.
curious, do you personally have any background with AI? Do you refer to people or consult with people who have a background in AI?
I talk to people, but I can't claim to have I've done a little investigating, but I can't claim to be an expert.
Has your company ever tested AI systems?
In a very gross way, yes.
Okay,
We
so
tested comma AI.
that
People say we
okay,
don't do stuff, but we actually tested their all their stuff. We got it
okay,
downloaded.
I understand. There's a difference between purchasing a drug and doing a study and doing the study that authorizes the drug to go out. Same thing is true for software, same thing is true for AI. I would posit that your people that you're speaking to, they've probably been in the industry a very long time, right? Would you say most of the people you talk to in the AI field, they've been in the industry 10 plus years, 20 plus years?
Two of them, I could think that's probably true.
Have any of them kept up with the changes that occurred in the recent years with transformer architectures coming out? Can they speak to the changes in how approaches are going in the world of AI, why things are progressing as fast as they are in other domains? Because if they can't speak to those things, I would say it's like using medicine from a few decades or centuries ago and trying to bring it into the modern time.
But
You
I wasn't
should,
talking about this. I mean, this
I
wasn't
am,
my subject. You asked me about AI. So I still
correct.
told you I wasn't an expert. You asked me if I knew anybody who was. I said, I guess a couple of guys. And now you just asked me about something I don't know about, and whatever
Right. So,
transforming. I don't know if they know that, because I didn't ask
right.
them. I didn't think to ask them that question.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
asked them other questions.
I'm trying to give you a topic, just one word. If you're going to go talk to people in the AI field and you want to talk about testing AI, talk to people about something called a transformer. At this point, to discuss about anything in AI and say you don't know what transformers is to just not hold up yourself to a duty of an engineer.
But wait,
You
wait,
should
wait,
look
wait.
up
I
the oath
didn't
of an
say I
engineer.
was an engineer. What's this insulting bullshit?
You
I
stated you're an
never
engineer,
claimed to know about what this was. I don't know
right?
about
But you have an
this stuff.
oath. You've taken an oath. If you're an engineer, you took the oath of the engineer. I encourage you to reread it. In there, it has a lot of statements that would go to the effect of, don't make statements you don't know about.
I didn't. I said nothing about any of those. You brought up AI. I didn't.
FSD is an AI system, and you're
I
talking
know.
about testing an AI system.
Yeah, I'm testing to see whether it kills people, and the
You
answer is
can't
it tries.
you can't test an AI system like it's a heuristic system. You're using the wrong methodology. It's like trying to throw water on a chemical fire. You're using the wrong method.
So I'm supposed to let it run over little children because it's stupid. I asked ChatGPT the other day, give me 10 sentences that end in the word tree. Only 3 of them did. It's amazing.
FSD is not ChatGPT. And when did FSD run over a child?
Well, I don't know.
You just said it kills children, so when did it kill a
I
child?
didn't say it kills children, but it could.
You literally said exactly that.
I said something slightly different.
You said word for word. No, you said word for word exactly that. I reproduced your exact wording just now.
Okay. I mean, it can.
So when did it kill? When did it kill FSD?
If you put it in the road, it will run them over.
Based on what evidence?
I've run tests. I've put,
which test specifically?
I put mannequin children in the road, and we've had, and put the car on autopilot and driven it down the road. I think I showed that in my Super Bowl commercial.
Autopilot. Interesting. Okay, autopilot. This is different from FSD, by the way.
That was FSD.
Okay, so now it's FSD. Okay, little interesting thing, though. In that video, though it was very low resolution, so it's very difficult to tell this, but you can actually still tell. You can see a small little icon at the bottom with a little warning triangle there. This is exactly what you would see if you were to, say, hold down the accelerator pedal, even though you have FSD engaged. Now, normally, if FSD sees any object, even be it a duck or a chicken crossing the road, we literally have an example of where a chicken crosses the road and FSD stops for it. So in this case, what happens is if you hold down the accelerator pedal, FSD will not stop. And the person who is testing this thing in the video held down the accelerator pedal. And what's even more interesting enough is this specific road had a bunch of cones on it, which essentially limited the FSD in its decision-making ability to, say, swerve off to the side. It's not going to swerve into a bunch of cones. It literally is not going to do that. So you caged it, essentially, held down the accelerator pedal, and let it run over a mannequin, and are using this as a test. So this is false information.
Now there is
if you were to engage FSD and you were to let it run without holding down the accelerator pedal, without interfering, because that's what you did, then it would stop or swerve. Also, if you cage the FSD itself, the swerving action is going to be very difficult to do. But in this case, it would actually stop because it has nowhere to swerve to. But you held down the accelerator pedal. You are making this exceedingly difficult to actually see, especially when it comes to seeing this little icon on the screen, because you uploaded it in such a poor resolution that this is either malice or you just have an incompetent media team.
No, that is false and actually libelous.
How?
It is not true. It's absolutely not true. The accelerator pedal was not pushed. I have affidavits to that behavior, just in case some idiot said that. There is no indication that the pedal was not pushed, and there's nothing to indicate that it was. You are just making that up. You're saying it's completely false. I mean, it's amazing. Completely.
What is that little icon?
And you are basing
what is that little warning icon?
You are basing.
What is your warning? What is your warning icon then? What is this warning icon?
It says
little warning icon at the bottom.
Supercharging unavailable. That's what it says.
Really? Can you actually prove this? Can we have like the HD version of this video? Can you release the HD version?
That video is just taken by somebody in the back seat with a handheld camera.
That is very convenient, isn't it?
No, that's just because there was somebody in the back seat with a handheld camera. There's no obligation that we had anybody.
So a Super Bowl ad that you spend millions of dollars on was filmed by a random person in the back with a handheld camera in low resolution.
No, you've made several mistakes. The one you're talking about with the cones and everything, that was not the Super Bowl ad. That was the August 22 ad at the racetrack.
And you don't have that video. You don't have that video still.
We have all the videos, but there's no high resolution video that shows the screen.
Okay, cool. The next time when you make a test that you'd want to release to the public, I'd highly implore you to upload it in at least 1080p and to have the screen in full view so we can see exactly what's going on.
It is, but you can't. Well, yes, we reran the test for that. People complained about that. We reran all the tests with the accelerator clearly visible, with no cones, and it ran them down anyway.
Okay. We
You're
have
basing
6
your
minutes.
entire understanding of the situation here that everything I say, you're claiming that everything I say is wrong because of this one thing where you're just absolutely 100% wrong. You have
Absolutely
Well,
not.
then,
No, we
then
made
zero
other
okay, all
evidence,
right,
examples. No,
and
no,
all
you're
right,
no, no, no.
guys.
This is
absolutely
true. This
wrong.
is not true. This is not true.
And when you
No, no.
finally
We made
accept
other
that that is
examples.
true,
We made
and you can
many
find
other
out by
examples. This
coming
is just
here.
one out of different examples that we brought up to you, all of which you vehemently denied despite evidence itself.
All right, I
So
gotta.
There's
this
no
is just
Let
an
me step
evidence.
in.
example.
It's
Let me step
false.
in.
But yes,
Let me step in.
Yaman,
Let me
go ahead.
step in. Okay. So there's obviously a lot of emotions, right?
It's not about emotion. It's what's
Okay,
true
Dan,
and what's
hold on.
false.
Okay, I understand. But the problem right now is everybody's kind of both sides are starting from the other person's faults. Okay, I think we were in a good point, and I kind of slipped a little bit again. I think we just kind of take a breath. We have 5 minutes to go before Dan runs out of time, so let's kind of do a round of final statements. I think we learned a lot here, and we can have another space later on, with more data. And with what
Yes.
you're taking, let's say a few words about what you learned from the space and what you're taking away from the space. And then next time we come, we're going to consider new data. Omar, let's start with you.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed. I feel like we got on a lot of tangents and didn't really get into the substance of what Dan's saying a lot. But, just to get into the data, right? Because he says, oh, Tesla's data is all fake. So to respond to that, I mean, 1.35 million fatalities per 100 million miles, that's NHTSA's statistic for the average car. They've assembled data not just from Tesla's telemetry, but also from reports that they're seeing in the field. For example, police reports and things like that combined with the telemetry. So they have a pretty good example of how many crashes are actually occurring. And they're not just relying on Tesla for this information. If you believe that they drove 1.4 billion miles, and if not, they're committing blatant fraud, then 19 people should be dead. I mean, Dan, you came out with a New York Times ad and you said this software needs to be pulled before it had been released, or tons of kids are going to get run over. Not one kid, to my knowledge, was run over. There's over 1 million people running this software right now. 19 fatalities should have occurred if 1.4 billion miles were driven. Instead, NHTSA says they're aware of one fatality, not 19, one. That suggests that 18 lives were saved on a statistical basis. The crux of the argument here really is, by spending millions, has Dan advocated for something that's going to save lives or actually kill people?
Okay.
And I think the data is pretty clear. If you were to ban FSD, you'd see an increase in fatalities, injury-causing crashes, and just property damage.
Okay. Thank you, Omar. We're going to go to Wes. I don't know if we're going to have enough time for every hand, but let's go to Wes, then Meta, then Dan.
Thanks, Iman. I'll be quick. I think it's really important for people to realize that Dan was saying that he doesn't feel like he's an expert. So we should take that into account when looking at the things that he reviews. And also, if we were to unequivocally get an answer to this kind of debate, I think that Dan's test should be done with a NHTSA official there to not only validate the results, but to have this kind of public facing. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, Alexandra, Meta, Dan. Alexandra, you have to unmute yourself first.
Sure. So I mean, I don't think this discussion brought us any further, but I'm very happy that Dan explained how he left the relationship that Greenhill had with Tesla. I think that's very important for lots of people didn't know that context. So that was clarified this time, and we'll see how much further this gets. I think this is very stuck. Dan doesn't move in any direction, is very convinced about what he's doing, spends millions of dollars on it. Let it be. I don't think giving him more of a platform is any good.
Okay, Meta, and then Dan.
I'm going to say that even though there was a lot of back and forth and a lot of discussion, if I'm going to give you a really big benefit of the doubt, you clearly care. You're saying you care about lives. We came to an agreement that, like Tylenol, like other safety systems, for probabilistic stuff, it's about risk management It's not about 100%. And as you said, you agree that by the time this should be on the road, there will probably be some bugs. So I think the criticism you have directed towards Tesla should be directed towards NHTSA and the testing standards that you want to see in the government. And I encourage you to continue to lobby for that because clarity around that is helpful. Spending the money that you're spending on the ads would probably be better spent hiring people to write out the test cases, work with NHTSA, and create the benchmark you want.
Dan, you have the last word.
Well, so much of this comes from the very beginning, which we heard from Adrian, which is those tests were 100% legitimate. He believes they're faked. He stood there and said it without any qualification, that it was a cheat, that the person did something that they did not do. And I know they didn't do it. They were under full instructions. We got an affidavit from the driver to ensure that he wouldn't do it, that he didn't do it. We went to every effort that we could to do it. And when people said, well, you didn't have a proper camera, we did them again. So just to prove it. And we invited everybody. I invite Elon Musk. I've invited NHTSA. I've invited everybody. I've invited Alexandra. She refuses. She lives a few miles from where I live. She won't come see the tests. To see the proof that the tests are real. Once you accept that the tests are all real, now you know how bad it is. That's why people want it so desperately to be false, the tests to be fake, because if they're all true, it's bad as I say, and now they have a problem. And that's
Okay.
that's the fundamental problem with it. And we
Could I
know,
ask you
again,
a
from
follow-up
using
question?
this product,
Adrian.
we can demonstrate that that it is not as safe as human driving. It is straightforward, and everybody I put in the car and we go for a drive comes back and agrees with me that it's not safer than a
Okay.
human, including all the people who turn it off after they buy it, which is 85% of the time.
Okay.
It's not safer.
Dan, I just want to say, so I hold a daily space called Tesla Live, and we dig into these things one by one at a very deep level. And you're always welcome to come in and speak with my speakers who are very knowledgeable about AI. Some have worked at Tesla before, especially on autopilot. And you're welcome to my space and to chat about this at a deeper level, because 90 minutes in such an important technology is just not enough with so many speakers. Okay?
Yep. Well,
Okay.
So,
Adrian?
so Dan, now that we've previously agreed that some errors will in fact occur, let's specify which kind of errors are acceptable and at what rate.
well, as we do with our software, we have people whose job it is to find problems and create horrible test cases to trip it up. And I have a whole team that does that for our software. And there should be a whole team who does it at Tesla.
Yeah, true. Of course. But now let's say that we have a bunch of bugs. At what rate? What's the failure rate? Let's just imagine we can create a failure rate. Which failure rate would be acceptable to you?
Well, if there should be no bugs that would cause a severe accident, a serious accident that we know about, that we haven't fixed yet. That we just keep testing.
So fatalities,
If U.S. fatalities were reduced from 40,000 to 40, would you say that software should be pulled off the road?
No, but it doesn't.
Yeah, I think he said earlier in this discussion, 10x is his bar, right? And now we talked about if 2x is better. So 10x is the bar for him.
For civilian use. I mean, you have professional test drivers before that who would operate on a less reliable system because they know what to do. They've been taught what to do, and they're experts. And many of the beta testers are exactly that. I mean, they drive the thing, so much. They all know. They know what all the glitches are. But the people you're selling to it, Elon Musk's Tesla is selling to civilians, telling them it's 4 times safer than a human driver, and yet when they buy it, they don't use it. They turn it off because as I do, because it keeps putting you in these desperate situations. And I know there are people who like bungee jumping and riding motorcycles without helmets because their lives, it's just somehow that's necessary. I'm not one of those guys. I'm an ordinary person.
Dan, you know you want to turn it on and start using it today. Come on.
Yeah, Dan, do you have more time? Dan, do you have more time?
Not much.
Just
Okay.
a quick question on the line
Yeah.
of questioning we were going down. You've said 2x is not good enough, 10x is good enough. Tesla's claiming 4x better if the individual is using it. I know you debate those numbers, but if those numbers were true and you realize they were true and you convinced yourself they were true, would that be enough?
I don't know. 4x, as I said, like I said, 2 I think isn't. 10 is clearly the right choice. At 4, maybe. I don't know. I haven't thought through. There's legal issues. I mean, basically, the 10x number is Congress has to pass a law that says it's okay to kill some people in order to save a lot more. We do that, right? I mean, in many different areas, we allow things that have danger to persist because of the upsides. So just at 4x, I'm just not sure whether it's politically enough. At 10,
So,
I think it is.
so
But
if your
as I
main
said, that's an
concern
opinion.
if your main concern is political issues or your main concern is about legal liability, then we can just leave this to the government, right? And you should lobby the government for your position, but you don't need
I
to
am.
directly address Tesla, right? Because the same rules should apply to Waymo and others. California and other states have passed rules. I don't know if you've read the rules for what it takes for an AV to be allowed on the road, but if you have, I think you would see in there that the government has taken the position that the right number, 2x, 4x, 10x, is up to the companies.
That should not be true. I don't agree. Because they'll just choose 1x, and that's wrong. They'll
Well,
take the simplest answer.
but they have to take the liability too, right?
Well, yeah, Tesla refuses to do that. Yeah, if Tesla started taking the liability for all this, that would make it easier. But even then, even if they say they'll do it, you still don't want to be killing people,
Do
even
you
if they
think
say they can afford the insurance.
has Tesla ever
So
been
wait,
sued for FSD use in your knowledge?
At the moment, I don't know.
so Waymo says they've reduced 80% of injury causing accidents. They're essentially 5 times safer on injury causing crashes. Should they be pulled off the road?
I don't know. I don't know that they had that it's 5 times. You told me that. I haven't read that myself.
Check out the study from Swiss Reinsurance.
Right. So again, they're also experimental. I mean, they're still at 1,000 cars on the road, not 1,000,000.
But they
There's
don't
a
have
progression.
but they
I mean,
don't have humans behind the wheel at all, right?
right. There's a progression in getting it better. I agree. I just think that Tesla, FSD at this moment has so many problems that are so obvious and easy to reproduce. And the engineers should be taken off of parking and everything else they're doing and spend 100% of their time getting rid of the safety problems that we know exist, like stranding you in the middle of the thing with Chuck's corner, or driving us right headlong into the side of another car, or whole Mars running true stop signs in one trip across San Francisco, right?
Well, I mean, they
That
have
was
fixed
supervised. That
they
was
have
All right.
fixed
supervised.
the
You were
issues
in
with
the
Okay,
12,
seat.
right?
guys.
You were in the
Like, for
seat.
example, the stop sign issue you pointed out, we tried it again in 12 and it didn't run that. So,
But
I mean,
but
it seems like the safety critical issues are dramatically down. With 12, it almost never makes any mistakes.
like I said, just yes, I haven't driven in that car for a long month, 6 months maybe. I haven't driven on FSD. And the first day that we got 12, we got 12. They were playing with it for a while. Then they said, Dan, come on, let's go out." And we went 1 hour, and we crashed. We would have crashed into the side of another car. What am I supposed
Yeah,
to say?
we can't go on and on about these anecdotal evidences from everybody, but at the end of the day, what matters is fleet-wide data, statistics, and for that reason, I do encourage people to check out TeslaFSDTracker.com. I think Elias is doing a great job with the limited data that he has. Just going to give it a shout out to that website. He has don't just look at the homepage, one through graphs. Look at through all the pages that Elias has put together. And we discuss every day the limitations of that data, but it guides us in our discussions so that we can base these discussions on data, not anecdotal evidence. All right. Good place to stop the conversation.
How much more time do you have?
We agree. I
Dan,
mean, I agree that that those guys, you're collecting that data. That's a good thing. And other
good.
people, I'm encouraging people like Miss Julianne to go out there and really test
Yeah,
the
yeah,
reality, not just keep putting out phony reports
yeah.
and
So
stuff. Yeah.
she actually comes into my spaces too. We discuss frame by frame some of the things that are happening on these edge cases you're talking about at a deeper level. So this is going to be a conversation, ongoing conversation, right? It's not going to be resolved. It's such an important issue. It's not going to be resolved in 60, 90 minutes. But I'm glad we were able to bring everyone together in one space for the first time so that we can actually start this conversation.
Can I ask one last question, Dan? Why do you think the regulators haven't listened to your calls to ban FSD?
I'm not so well, because they weren't convinced of the issues, but their latest report said that the statistics on accidents were wrong. They said that the driver monitoring system, which is just terrible, and it doesn't work. I mean, those were our issues, and the geofencing of the software to areas that it's been demonstrated to be safe, or vice versa, only to places it's been demonstrated to be safe and not anywhere else. We asked for that, and they brought that up too. Now they haven't done anything regulatory like take it off the road or tell what they have to do, but I think they put down that, and they brought up all these key issues that they had not publicly discussed before. They had, there'd been discussion. I mean, I've sent them repeatedly all these things and shown them videos and data that we have to all these effects. I felt that basically their latest report pretty much states things in our terms, in the way we state them. And now we're just deciding whether one is it really safer now that with a driver, with a human driver and and FSD, supervised FSD, is that actually safer than a human driver? A key question. If not, it shouldn't be on the road. And then where are we in terms of overall fixing all these terrible security problems? We do you ship it when it has all these bugs? Not bugs. I mean safety violations, safety problems. Do you keep shipping it, or do you do what I say, which is you put it back in the lab, you run it through its paces, you hire people to try to trip it up like us, and then when you fix all those problems, you say, okay, now we're ready to go to the road.
Okay. Adrian, you want to close off the space?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I think this was a really interesting discussion. We should definitely have a follow-up to this at some point at your discretion. Most of us are live, much like with Tesla Live. I'm just kind of an organized space. I tend to do at least 1 or 2 a week, mainly just organized topic specific in advance. So if that's something that you'd like, similar to this space, then do hit me up again and we can do this at some other point, perhaps even after 8.8, because Robotaxi does come out and I believe this is a highly contentious thing for you. Should be interesting to hear your thoughts on that when it does come around. Of course, no hard feelings. I don't really have much of a bias here against you. I like to have a discussion. If I did have a very bad bias in terms of being a cultist, much like as the Tesla cult is usually framed, then I wouldn't even have you on the space. But I enjoy the discussion, and I thought this was it was pretty productive. So yeah, if you'd like to do this again, let me know and we'll organize something.